Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello and welcome to a special bonus mini episode of Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. Now I'm slipping this one in a little bit early because my regular weekly episode is likely to be a little bit delayed due to traveling that I'm doing, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. That, and of course I have some news that I wanted to share with you, my podcast listeners. Well, it may not be news to you depending on what you've seen kicking around in social media. But while I was at NINC, Novelists Inc., I had some intense and long conversations with Chris Austin, CEO of Draft2Digital, as well as the rest of the amazing Draft2Digital team. And over the course of the week, we found what seems to be an ideal spot for me. As of October 1st, 2018, I became Director of Business Development for Draft2Digital, and I couldn't be more excited. I will be performing this role as an independent contractor, fully part of the team but working on a part-time basis for about 20 hours a week. This allows me to continue to have time for my own writing, as well as continuing to do some one-on-one coaching and consulting, and I will be working remotely from my home in Waterloo, Ontario, when I'm not traveling on behalf of Draft2Digital. I will admittedly have to scale back on some of the consulting and one-on-one coaching that I'm doing, but in my new Draft2Digital role, I'm going to be able to work with and help plenty of authors, just like I used to when I was doing a similar job at Kobo. Of course, now the help can extend to all the retailers because Draft2Digital delivers books, if you want, to Amazon, to Kobo, to Barnes & Noble, to Apple Books, to Tolino in Germany, and many other retailers and library systems. So what changes is that now I'm considered an official employee, and I get to work directly with the amazing team of people from Draft2Digital, many of whom you likely already know from podcasts or conferences already. Folks like Dan Wood, Director of Author Relations, or Kevin Tumlinson, Director of Marketing. Yes, and you might remember Kevin as my guest on episode 15 of the podcast. Now, like me, Kevin is also a writer, and so is Aaron Pogue, Draft2Digital's president. What doesn't change is that I continue to run this weekly podcast, and I continue to offer my honest advice and stark reflections about writing and about publishing. So let me reflect on this new role on Draft2Digital and on the week at Novelists Inc. First, Novelists Inc. I've been attending Novelists Inc., or NINC, for about 5 years. It has always been and continues to be one of the best conferences in terms of connecting with the most amazing minds in writing and publishing today. Not only are there some great industry folks there, such as Will and Kelly from Findaway, Damon from BookFunnel, Ricardo from Readsy, Sarah from Barnes & Noble Press, Chrissy from Kobo Writing Life, Dan from Kindle Direct Publishing. I'm sure I missed a bunch. But the writers themselves are top-notch, and they're advanced in so many ways. At NINC, I learned just as much from the writers I might never have even really heard of or paid attention to as I do from the big names who are on stage, folks like Mark Dawson or David Gaughran or Joanna Penn. You see, it's because NINC is just that rich and info-filled. The roundtables, the presentations, the panels, the hallway conversations, the amazing networking is among the best and why I keep returning. I have pages of notes that I haven't even had a chance to get to since I got back from Novelists Inc. I'll likely be sorting through them for the next few weeks, slowly incorporating ideas into my processes and my ongoing learnings. Second, karaoke at NINC. I know, the biggest question people have already poked me because at NINC, both Draft to Digital and Find Away Voices co-sponsored the karaoke night on the Saturday, which I unfortunately couldn't attend last year because last year I was hosting the Kobo Open House event at the exact same time, so I couldn't attend karaoke. But the biggest question people have asked me about, because I mentioned it on this podcast, and I think Joanna mentioned it on her podcast as well, is that whether or not we did our duet version of Bon Jovi's "Living on a Prayer." The answer is unfortunately no. The timing just didn't work out. Now, we did, however, get a chance to connect, which is always absolutely fantastic. Now, my own talk on the 5 biggest career-killing mistakes an author can make and how to avoid them was unfortunately up at the same time as Joanna was doing one of her talks. Now, I was quite pleased that I actually had an audience at all, knowing what I was up against. And people have asked me, and I did say that I will be recording a version of that presentation, probably a truncated version of that presentation, because I don't want it to take the full 50 minutes. And I'll be posting that as content for my Patreon listeners, with a quick nod to my Patreon listeners. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Your belief in me is fantastic, and I do want to provide you with additional valuable content, such as content like this that I would normally be giving at a conference, but you can get directly from the comfort of your own home. Now, speaking of Joanna's talks, because I was up against one of her talks, but I did have a chance to attend her talk on selling more globally or internationally. And it was very similar to a talk that she gave at the WMG business class, which used to be held in Lincoln City, Oregon, and that was held last fall. And this is with Dean Wesley Smith and Christine Catherine Rush. They're now being held in Vegas, a little bit easier to get to. But when Joanna's talk ended, she saw me in the back of the room and she said, "Mark, why were you in the audience? You've already seen this talk." And I told her that not only was there enough new content in her version of the talk this year, but that there's so much valuable info that I likely only processed 30% of it the first time anyways. I took pages and pages of notes. Always great stuff from Joanna. But back to karaoke, because that's what this segment is about. As I said, Joanna and I didn't do our duet, which is a little bit sad. But I did do my favorite Elvis tune, "Are You Lonesome Tonight?" And I also did a couple of duets. So Dan Wood from Draft to Digital and I did our version of the song "If I Had $1 Million" by Bare Naked Ladies, which is always a blast. We've done that, I think, a couple times before, because I think it was the one Canadian song that Dan knew. And I played Sunny to the share of Bethany, who is the daughter of best-selling author Brenda Hyatt. And Bethany, who has an amazing voice, also happens to be a Cher impersonator, so she does an incredible version of Cher. And her voice is like silk. And she was absolutely amazing. Now, I made sure to balance out the talent on the stage by doing my feeble attempt at singing like Sunny. So we did "I Got You, Babe" together. And perhaps more than anything, I was really, she was good at singing and I was good at getting a laugh. So I impersonated Sunny by swooning at everything she sang and actually knelt on my shoes, sort of to make me more in line with Sunny's height. And I think everyone got a laugh out of it. It was kind of fun. We'll be posting a picture of that in the show notes at starkreflections.ca. And what was really, really funny was later on that night, somebody from the audience who didn't know me, hadn't seen me before, and first saw me on the stage, thought that I was actually 4 feet tall. And she was startled when, after the song ended, I got back up and I slipped my shoes back on and handed back the mic. I thought that was kind of a funny moment of the night. Third, Draft to Digital announcements at NINC. And before I reflect on my new role at Draft to Digital, I want to share a few notes from Kevin Tumlinson's amazing Draft to Digital presentation, where they made some big announcements. First, they announced that they would be offering Draft to Digital Shared Universes, which is a replacement for the closed-down Kindle Worlds, but with no exclusivity requirements. They'll be launching it with authors who already had Kindle World titles available and universes available to start off with, and then they're going to open it up a little bit further. So they're going to start with that small sort of replacement for those who are in it, who are looking for the same sort of opportunities, but it's going to have the usual wide distribution that Draft2Digital has. So to Amazon, to Kobo, to Apple Books, to Barnes & Noble, etc. And then they're going to have the convenient payment splitting, which is awesome. And then they're going to roll that out in a bigger way. So that's a great opportunity for writers. But as if that wasn't enough, the second announcement that Kevin made was Draft2Digital Print, or D2D Print. Now, just in time for the closure of CreateSpace, as authors are scrambling and not sure, should I go to KDP Print? Should I just go all in with Ingram Spark, etc.? And it's going to include distribution to the usual suspects, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, WH Smith, Chapters Indigo for print. Pretty much the same places that Ingram Spark, or the crappy sort of version of wide distribution that Amazon CreateSpace or KDP Print offers, where no retailer really wants to buy from a competitor. They'll buy from Ingram or they'll buy from other places. But with Draft2Digital Print, there'll also be print distribution options via IPG, which is Independent Publishers Group, which is a great distributor in the US, and that opens up amazing opportunities for authors and print, which is still, in my mind, relatively untapped potential when it comes to digital and independent authors. And that's something that is likely to grow and continue to develop in great ways over time, especially if I have my way with it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Now, D2D Print will have the option of generating not only the interior, which they already had based on the amazing templates that they already have in existence, but they'll also be auto-generating a full cover flat PDF from the front cover that you uploaded, combined with the synopsis metadata that you entered. Now, this might not be a big deal for authors who already have PDFs designed and print ready, but for beginning authors who wouldn't know where to start in print, this is absolutely groundbreaking and fantastic. This is something I wish I had had when first starting. Now, I've started to test it myself, and I'm absolutely loving it. Now, just to be clear, the process is still being tested by Draft2Digital. It's very, very limited to just some folks, internally and a few external folks testing the system end to end. Draft2Digital does not want to release this until after they get a few bugs worked out of the system. So please be a little bit patient. They are working the bugs out of this system. It's going to work. And if you want to get on the waiting list to be notified when it's ready to go, you can email them, support@draft2digital.com, or go to draft2digital.com/printbeta. And that's 2 is the numeral 2, so Draft2Digital. And you can get added to the list, which will be coming as soon as they iron out those final bugs. But so far, so good. Now, another thing about print, which is great, I think, especially associated with what Draft2Digital is doing, is that last summer of 2017, Draft2Digital launched audiobooks in partnership with Findaway Voices, who happen to be the sponsor for this podcast. So to get your audiobook set up at Findaway, if you have it on Draft2Digital, it's the easiest way to do it. All you need to do is click a couple of buttons in Draft2Digital when you're publishing your book, and they'll take your metadata and port it over to Findaway Voices, to your unique account at Findaway Voices. But that saves you having to rekey all of that info in, which I think is absolutely amazing. Now, this is a great add-in, which is a free feature, and it's also evidence of the author empowerment that both Draft2Digital and Findaway Voices are all about. And you can check out more about Findaway Voices at starkreflections.ca/Findaway. Fourth, D2D and me. What can I say? I have always admired the people and the free services that Draft2Digital offers. I've already been talking about and promoting their amazing free tools. Heck, even when I worked at Kobo, even though I'd spent a ton of money on the free ebook conversion tool that's built into Kobo Writing Life, I continued to tell people that the free conversion tool at Draft2Digital was the best one on the market, and I suggested authors use it because that's what I was doing. I have loved their Books to Read Universal Book Link tool as well. It's so much easier for me to share a link by saying, for example, my new traditionally published book, Macabre Montreal, is launching this weekend, the first weekend in October. You can check it out at bookstoread.com/Macabre Montreal. Now, isn't that much easier than saying the full Amazon link? especially because of the gobbledygook with the ASI in it. Or even the Kobo link, which is quite handy and looks good on a screen, but difficult to say. No, I can say books2read.com/Macabre-Montreal, books2read.com/Evasion for one of my thrillers, books2read.com/A Canadian Werewolf in New York, or for one of my new nonfiction books, books2read.com/Publishing Success. See how easy that is for authors to have a single link to their book on all the retail sites? Yet again, much, much easier, not just for saying it, but much easier for adding links to the end of your books, because it takes you to a spot where the user can then choose the retailer of their choice and you don't have to manage 40 links to different places. These are the types of things I admire about Draft2Digital. And I also admire and respect the entire team over there. They are committed to helping authors, to providing powerful free services to authors, and to creating tools for author growth and success. It's just part of their DNA. I'm honored and I'm proud to become a member of the team and to help them continue in their great work. As Director of Business Development, I'll be continuing to travel to conferences, just like Dan and Kevin, who I'll be working closely with, to speak to authors about Draft2Digital. I'll also be liaising with other businesses to explore partnerships for Draft2Digital that benefit authors, and I'll likely be bringing a bit more Draft2Digital presence into Canada too. Lots of great things on the horizons. I will be sure, of course, to share that on this podcast with you to keep you informed of the great developments. And if you have any questions, you can comment in the show notes at starkreflections.ca, or reach out to me at Twitter at Mark Leslie, or email me, mark@markleslie.ca, or mark.lefebvre@draft2digital.com. No shortage of ways you can reach me. What I'm about to do is I'm about to read the Draft2Digital announcement. And this was posted on the Draft2Digital blog. There'll be a link to it in the show notes. There is, of course, a picture of me, several years ago when I still had some hair on the top of my head. And the title is D2D welcomes Mark Lefebvre to the team. And the article says, when it comes to indie publishing veterans, few are better known and more respected than Mark Leslie Lefebvre. This is weird reading about myself in the third person. And now Draft2Digital is very excited to announce that Mark is joining the D2D team as our Director of Business Development. Mark will help shape D2D into an even more powerful force for indie author growth, letting us continue our momentum as the leading indie book distribution platform in the industry. See, I can't even read it properly. The full press release is below, but the gist is this: we couldn't be more excited and more pleased, and we're looking forward to seeing how Mark helps our authors build and grow their entire indie career. I'm not going to read the full press release because it's just weird reading about myself in that third person, but I am going to add a quote from Chris Austin, Draft2Digital CEO, who says, Mark has long been an asset to the indie publishing community. His sincere love for authors is unmatched in the industry, and his extensive knowledge and experience make him a perfect fit for Draft2Digital. We look forward to working with him to help improve the lives and careers of our authors. I'm touched. I'm flattered. I love the fact that I get to work with authors in a different way, as well as independently, and to just be honest and show integrity in terms of the things that we can do to help authors be successful. It's pretty exciting for me. But that's kind of it. It kind of felt this last couple of minutes felt way too self-congratulatory, and I need to go remind myself that I'm a writer who has deadlines and I haven't met them. All those things that bring me back down to earth. That's okay. I'm going and doing a book launch this weekend. Actually, one of the reasons that I did this special mini episode of Stark Reflection Podcast is that I'm just about to hit the highway to head to Montreal, where Shayna Krishnasamy and I, and Shayna is my co-author on Macabre Montreal, will be launching the traditionally published book Macabre Montreal at two very special events. And so I'll be on the highway. It's quite a long drive, and I wanted to get this episode out quickly and then work on the regular episode, potentially once I get to the hotel room and have a little bit of downtime. But thanks for listening to this special mini episode of the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. Hopefully you didn't find it too self-reflective and too self-congratulatory. Don't worry, I'll get back to my regular self where I'm down on myself and frustrated that I'm not reaching all of my writing goals. We're still in that same boat, you and I together. Episode 41, I plan on featuring an interview with Tina Dietz, about audiobooks, which is just a great perspective that she shared with me. And I interviewed her a couple weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to getting that episode out the door to you shortly. Thanks for listening to Stark Reflections. Looking forward to catching you in episode 42. But until then, here's wishing you great writing and good Stark Reflections.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.